morning. I am so happy that I get to join you today and that I get to share my passion with you. What I'm going to be talking to you about today is going to be something that could be a depressing subject, but I'm hoping that it's not. I'm hoping that after we're done this morning that you will be able to find a lot of hope in what I am able to share with you. And the topic is going to be about how to get your affairs in order ahead of time so that when the time comes, you won't have to fear anything, right? Or your heirs don't have to fear anything, that they can have peace of mind. So this, what I'm talking to you about today has been my passion for the last probably year and a half. And I just want to get right into it if I can. Um, I want to know if you believe that your affairs are in order. Do you have a will, a trust, a power of attorney, advance directive? Do you believe that that's all that you need and that as long as you do those items that your heirs can rest assured that things are in order? Are you ready or do you think you can be ready? Well, I'm here to tell you that having those papers, although they are important, is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay. I want to ask you a few questions just so that we can be on the same wavelength, so that you know where I'm coming from and that there's a lot of things to think about basically. But I want to get through today so that you can have peace of mind that things can be in order when the time comes. Okay. First question I have to ask you. If something were to happen to you today and you are the one doing all the finances in your household, would your spouse be ready to step in and handle it all? Would he know where the checkbook is? Does he know how to even write a check? Does he, hopefully he does, does he know where the bills are? How are the bills paid? Are they by check? Are they by auto payment by the bank? Where are the bank accounts located? Does he know the bank account numbers? Does he even know where the stamps are to mail out bills if he needed to? Okay. Now, if you can answer that question easily and say, oh, yeah, I can step in or my spouse can step in, then congratulations. I think you're 90% ahead of the game. Unfortunately, in most households, one person does all the finances and the other person has no clue what, what to do. So when something happens to the one that is able to do it, the other person is totally lost. Okay, so that's my first question about the bills. The second question is, if you have important papers in the computer, and something happens to your spouse and this is his computer, would you know the password to get into the computer? And even if you had the password, would you know how to find the important papers? The same thing goes for the cell phones. Do you know the password for your cell phone? Last example, if something were to happen to your spouse today and you picked up this keychain, would you know what every single key there is for? That makes you kind of pause and think, doesn't it? What I'm telling you about today is all the things that I went through, I experienced, and all the things that I feel like people need to know about that you just don't know. It's important to realize what you don't know, and that's why has been my passion all this time in the last year or two, because I know how difficult it is when you don't know what you don't know. Okay. For example, another example is if something happened to your spouse, would you know where the motor vehicle registration is and whose names are on it? Is it only his name? If it's only his name, how are you going to sell the car? Do you know where this paper is located? So you could sell the car if you needed to. Okay. So there's a lot of things that you don't really think about, but are very important. These are like the mundane things, but they're not so mundane when you have to go through it all. A lot of things that we will go through when our spouses pass or our parents pass, there's a lot of fear because, there's lack of knowledge of where things are, how to find things, where the file system is. Um, And the worst thing you can do is avoid and not even address this problem, okay? Most people, I know many people, will say, well, I don't want to think about it. I just hope I die first and I don't have to worry about it. But in reality, death has no pause button. It can happen anytime, and either you're ready or you're not, right? I mean, that's what the bottom line is. So I want to tell you my story just so that you can get a perspective of where I'm coming from and why I have made this my mission over the last 6 months. Okay. Um, I I have been an RN for 42 years. I worked at Kapilani Hospital, retired 6 years ago in 2015 after 42 years there. So I can probably guarantee you that I was a charge nurse there when you had your children. If they're 40, 45 of age or below, I was there. Okay. Now, so I was an RN for 42 years before I retired. Um, just a little history. I became an RN because in 1968, I was a junior in high school, and I ended up with a ruptured appendix, spent 2 months in the hospital, was very sick, should have died, but did not. But because of the nursing care I got, I wanted to become a nurse. Now, I believe that things happen in our lives for a reason. That I believe happens, so I'll become a nurse. Back in 1990s, I was very sick from a illness which they couldn't diagnose for a while. Finally, in 1998, after suffering for probably 10 years with a lot of aches, joint pain, muscle pain, stomach problems, I was finally diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Spent another 2 years following the doctor's suggestions on how to help me, which didn't work. And finally, in the year 2000, I found a protocol, hooked up with a physician in California, and reversed my fibromyalgia. And as a result, I started a nonprofit group and a support group, which is made 21 years this year. However, I I stepped down from that last year to focus on my passion right now, which is what I'm talking to you about. But what I want to do is just give you an idea of where I've come from because I have no regrets that I spent 2 months in the hospital and that made me become a nurse. I have no regrets that I had fibromyalgia because I went on to start an organization that has helped probably thousands of people. Um, and now, with what I went through over the last 2 years, I've come to this point where now I have a new mission in life, and that is to help people to get through the passing of a loved one, but getting prepared ahead of time so that when the time comes, there'll be time to grieve and not time to run around doing things that you never thought about. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about my story. In 2018, my father-in-law, who was 99 years old, suddenly passed. He was so organized. He had his checkbook balanced to the penny. This is age 99. He had his checkbook balanced to the penny. He had a beautiful file system. He had a secret safe, which he had showed us 16 years ahead of time. It was a safe that contained all his important papers like his will, trust, power of attorney, advance directives, his pension papers, even his funeral plan. And he made it a point to educate us about where the key was located. So when he passed away, my mother-in-law told me, "You take it over. Can you take over everything?" And what do you tell your mother-in-law? My husband was the only child, and he had to run his own business. So I stepped in, and I stepped in gladly to help out because what else do you have to, right? But what I thought would be an easy journey because my father-in-law was so organized, I found out that it was just the tip of the iceberg. My mother-in-law had never written a check. I didn't know where the checkbook was. Um, Basically, I took over everything thinking I would know what to do. And as I went through things over the next 2 years, I just went through it. I went, every time something happened, I would say, I wish I had known. I wish I had known. I wish someone had told me about this. The first sign that anything was wrong, aside from the key, because when I went to get the key for the safe, instead of one single key on a keychain, which was 16 years earlier, that my father had told us about. I went to get the key, and here was a keychain with 20 keys on it, all unlabeled. So it was the most frustrating thing to have to go through all these keys to get to the safe and open it up when it was so important to get those papers out. So that was one thing. The second thing that happened um, that I thought would not be a problem was that 10 days after my father-in-law passed, his telephone went out. The telephone in the home went out, the landline, and my mother-in-law, that was the only way to communicate with her. So simple, right? You just call the telephone company, they come out and they'll fix the telephone, easy peasy, right? Well, it wasn't quite that simple. When I called the telephone company, they told me they couldn't fix it because my mother-in-law was not on the bill, and that the only way they could fix it was to produce my father-in-law's death certificate. Now, this is 10 days after he passed away, and we had just met the funeral home. We had just ordered the death certificates. They told us it would take anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks to come, and that was unacceptable to have a phone that wasn't working. Well, long story short, it took me, this is the honest truth, it took me 29 phone calls, 3 months, and getting the Better Business Bureau involved just because her name was not on the bill. Now, how easy is it to add a person onto the bill and to avoid this heartache? But these are the little things that people just don't realize, right? So anyway, over the next 2 years, I'm a very organized person. So when something life changing happens, I get out a notebook and I start jotting down everything so I don't forget anything. So I started jotting down things like I had to remember who I had to call, what I had to follow up on, um, things like that. And I started making a list and realized there were so many things I wish I had known, so many things that people need to know that probably they don't think about. And I ended up with a list of, I think I counted 116 items. And what I did was I compiled this list thinking, gosh, there's a lot of stuff. And I started giving out this list, just a rough list. And I gave it out to my friends. We're all baby boomers and we have husbands or, spouses that are sick. We have parents that are sick or passing away. And all of them came back to me and said, Annette, this information is so important. You need to get it out there. So they encouraged me to write a book. And so I did. The book is called, let me get this book, it's called Wait, Don't Die Yet. I know it's a kind of a strange title for a book, but I wanted it to be catchy because you can't say wait, don't die yet. When the time comes and somebody's going to pass, it's going to happen. And you're going to be either ready or you're not going to be ready. So I want people to know they can be ready. Let me read you the title and the subtitle of the book. It's called Wait, Don't Die Yet, a complete guide to all things no one really wants to think about, but everyone needs to know before, during, and after a loved one's passing. Now, in this book, I put my whole heart into this book, okay? The first third of the book, and by the way, before I forget, stay with me because the book is going to be free, okay? Just stay with me. So this book has, the first third of the book is my story. The last third of the book is a guidebook, okay? And all what it is my story segues into the guidebook because I've included things in the guidebook to fill out that is, is a direct result of what I went through. And so I've included as much as I can, okay? Um, so it has a before section, and this is the part that you would fill out. The story is actually divided to sections: before, during, after, and after the after. And that the guidebook is also broken up into those sections. Okay, I know it's kind of hard to explain, but The before section is when you're well, and this is normally something that maybe a financial counselor has given you or your insurance man has given you to fill out. Um, and normally it's like a, maybe 10 pages long, and you fill out your bank accounts and insurance policies, and you file it, and they say, okay, that's all you need. Now at least your children know what to do in case something happens. Well, that's a myth. I have to tell you, that is a myth right there. There's so much more to know that people just don't think about. Okay, so in this book, I have a section called Before. You fill out ahead of time, and it does include all those things that the financial counselor would have you do. However, I made a little more detailed. Um, it just doesn't include those things like bank accounts and all that. What it includes are things like, say, for example, your spouse ended up in the hospital tonight, and you had to let the emergency room know what meds he's on. Would you, without going to the medicine cabinet, would you know exactly what meds your spouse is on? What is the name of it? How often does he take it? What is the dose? How many milligrams it is? Um, who his doctor is and his phone number. Okay. Now, if you had filled out the book ahead of time, all you have to do is when this happens, you grab the book or your or the guidebook, which you can download. Okay, I'll tell you about that later. Grab it, take it to the hospital with you, and then look it up and say, "Oh, this is the medication she's on." How simple is that? No stress, right? Okay, so that's the beforehand. You fill out all these things to get prepared for the time that you may need it down the road, or you will need it down the road. I've also included things there like things about your pet. People don't think about things like that. If something were to happen to you, who is going to take care of your pet? Who is going to feed your pet? Do they know what to feed your pet? Do they know who your veterinarian is? Um, Things like that, okay? There's also things in there like, who is your yard man? Just these are just a little things that people just don't think about. But if something were to happen to you today and you had to call your husband's accountant, would you know the number? Well, these are things that are all included in here in the before section. Now, there is a during section, and this is when you transition from you or your parents or whatever, transition from being well and needing more care. So it could be assisted living, um, facility. It could be having a caregiver come to your home. It could be you going to a residential care home. But what I have in there is a section about caregiving, how to choose a caregiver. Now, for example, if you were looking for a residential care home for your loved one, what would you look for? What criteria would you use? Most of us would say, well, if it's close to home, it's clean, it's safe, the people are qualified and friendly. There's other residents to interact with, and there's activities to do. That would make you happy, right? I mean, that would make you feel at least you cover all the bases. But let me ask you, what if you went to a place or your loved one went to a place where they only fed you one type of food? For example, only Chinese food, and you hate Chinese food. Okay. Now, in my case, my mother-in-law ended up in a residential care home, and her favorite foods were Coca-Cola. I hate to say this, Coca-Cola, cocoa, sushi, Taco Bell tacos, and Burger King Whoppers. Now, I was fortunate because the place that she was going to, the caregiver had been taking care of patients for 16 years. So she knew what was important to them. And so she found out what my mother-in-law loved, and she was sure to feed it to her at least once or twice a week. And because of that, and all the other criteria that were met, my mother-in-law was happy there. And I believe she was happy till she passed away. Because of this one little thing, she got what she wanted to eat. Now, in this caregiving section, I interviewed caregivers to give hints of what to look out for, how to make life easier, how to make your environment safer. For example, I had a girlfriend who brought her mother home to live with her and forgot the throw rug. Something so simple that, we should think about, but we didn't. And her mother fell, slipped on the throw rug, and broke her hip. Luckily, she was okay. Okay, so that's the during section where you find a caregiver and just hints on how to find a caregiver. Then I have a section on communication because the last thing people want to talk about is end of life and getting prepared, getting affairs in order. I mean, there are too many people that avoid this important conversation because they're afraid of what their spouse may think or what their children will think or the children will think what their parents will think. I mean, if you were a child bringing this up to your parent, let's talk about getting affairs in order, what kind of response would you get? Especially if you're healthy, right? um, you probably think, well, why do we need to talk about this? You think I'm dying? I don't have a foot in the grave yet, right? So this is a very sensitive topic, and most families, it's almost like a taboo. You don't talk about it, but the book has a section has a chapter on communication and how to approach the subject gently and how to get through it. Okay, so that's about communication. Part of what the communication also is that you need to communicate your wishes while you can about what to do down the road. For example, um, my husband has a new manager, and her father refuses to go to hospice. So it's hard for her to work full time and to care for her father full time. Now, nobody likes to think about this is going to happen, but what happens if it happens? What if you had this talk ahead of time, like if this happens, I'm okay going to hospice, or no, I don't want to go to hospice. So at least you can make plans ahead of time, right? Another part of communication is, for example, I had a girlfriend whose nephew, uh, her father passed away. I mean, his father passed away, and all he wanted was the father's gold watch, but he had never communicated this to his father. So when his father passed, the watch went to somebody else. And that was the only thing that was important to him. How easy would it have been to have open discussion, say, you know, or maybe the father would have said, hey, when I pass, is there anything that you would like that I can give to you? Or how much better is it that if you have things now like jewelry, how much better is it to be able to pass it down now while you're still alive and have people enjoy it, right? So anyway, that's part of the communication part, okay? So we're going to that. There's also a section on the file system because you can have your papers in order, but if you don't have a file system where people can find things, it makes no sense, right? I have talked to too many people that have things all over the house. It can be in their bedroom, in their den. They put things in Ziploc bags, hoping people will find them. Ziploc bags is not a bad idea, but it's better than nothing. But this book will cover the file system that I use. I use color codes and stuff like that. So you can look at that. So I've covered the before, I've covered the during. Now let's go to the topic of after. And after is when a spouse passes and what to do. It goes over things like the funeral, setting up the funeral, how many death certificates do you need, who to call, things like that. Okay, there are myriad of companies you need to call when somebody passes. So the book covers all that. It covers the section that you would fill out in the before time, and it'll tell you who your insurance guy is, who your pension person is, who the homeowner insurance or agent is, so that when it's time to make the phone calls, you don't waste time going on the internet, looking up phone numbers, being put on hold for an hour like I was. Okay, so that's after. After the after is when both parents have passed away and the kids have to have closure. It goes through how to go through your bank account, when to close the bank account, and things like that. Um, and included in the after, what I like, you know, when you think about both parents passing away, and you think about a home that they've probably lived in for 60 or 70 years average, and the thought of having to clean this home up, where do you begin, right? So this book is to also prompt you who will be passing away one day to get things in order. I mean, when my in-laws passed away, their kitchen was a mess. There were B-52 bomber cockroaches crawling all over the place. There were dozens of mayonnaise and jam jars, paint cans that were probably 30 years old in the garage. You know, how much better would it have been if they had taken care of those things so I didn't have to do it? So that's one thing to just make you kind of think if, you know, thinking ahead for your kids on what they have to clean up. Um, I have resources in there on who to call to help clean up. Um, I don't know if you ever heard of Got Junk. I love them. I have resources in there on what do you do about roaches. And I'm not talking about fumigating your home. You know, I have a product that I have used from Amazon, a simple product that got rid of all my roaches in my house. And I can tell you about that later in the, you know, questions and answer period if you want me to. It's the most amazing product. But these are the things that are covered, and they're all covered in the book. So, you know, this book has been just a labor of love just to get it out to you. It includes so many things. If you look at the table of contents in the guidebook, I just want to read you just to show you how just comprehensive it is. Um, there's your emergency contacts, of course, your financial and legal things like your legal documents, your attorney information, your income, bank accounts, credit cards, home insurance, your appraisal, um, your retirement accounts, your pensions, your life insurance. Do you have long-term care? There's a part on your medical history and more, as I told you, your physician's allergies, prescriptions. Um, and then there's a miscellaneous section about your automobiles. Do you have automobile loans? Do you have a safety deposit box? Home security system, hired help, um, a funeral plan. Okay. Then there's a part about during where there's a hospital checklist. There's a place where where I talk about the 6 activities of daily living, and how you can gauge whether or not you qualify for long-term care at that point in time. Um, just a lot of stuff about nursing care homes, when setting up the funeral, a general checklist, and then there's after the after, which is a final checklist and closure after both parents have passed away. So I hope that today I have given you some encouragement. I can honestly guarantee you that I believe this is the most comprehensive book there is out there. You know, I've read some. I've had people give me papers that they had gotten from their financial counselors, and all of the stuff that I had covered was already in the book. Okay, I have a friend who bought a number of books to give away, and she just emailed me the other day saying that she went to her mother's attorney to update the trust and gave him a copy of the book, and he skimmed through it and said he was kind of amazed at it because he said he is so used to doing the legal part and never realized that there were so many mundane things to take care of. So he appreciated getting the book. Now, the book is free. It's an ebook that you can download for free. I told you, just go to Annette Cam, one word, leave out the space in between my first and last name, AnnetteCam.com. All you do is you go to that, put in your email, and within 10 minutes you will get an email with instructions on how to download. Okay. Um, I can promise you, you will not get rubbish email. Okay. The book is totally free, no strings attached. All I ask is that you pass it on to whoever you know, because all I want to do, my mission is to just get this out there. Okay. I just started doing these talks, you know, a couple months ago, and I'm so blessed because so far there have been over 2,300 people download the free book, and it's gone to, I think the last count was 15 states and 42 cities. So that, I mean, it's so exciting to see that my book is making an impact out there. And I just want to get it out to everybody you know. So please help me go download it, go pass it on to everybody you know. If you have any doubt that you need this book, um, look it up on Amazon. Um, you don't have to buy it on Amazon. You can't get it free on Amazon. You have to go to my email, that website, annetteCam.com, to get it for free. But if you're hesitant about even checking it out, I would invite you to go to Amazon, and all you do is look at the reviews. There are like 100 and 105, 106 reviews, and all but three of them are 5 stars. And the reviews actually, I think, will encourage you to know that what you have for free is a blessing. It will give you peace of mind. The reviews show this. I get emails all the time from people who are just full of gratitude because now that they have it, they have found peace, and they know that things are in order when the time comes that they pass away, or that they've talked to their parents and the parents have filled this out, and now the parents can have peace of mind. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope I have motivated you to do something, because all you need to do is take that first step. All you need to do is take that first step, and I can guarantee you, once you start filling in the book, it'll just flow. I don't think it's going to take you more than 2 weeks to fill it up. And then you can be set. Print out, there's a free printable guidebook that's also on the website. You can fill it out, file it away. You don't have to buy the book. Just get the ebook for free and pass it on to everybody that you know. So thank you again. God bless you. I'll be around if you have any questions. Thank you so much.